You know, Nathan, I'm not attracted to feet.
Okay.
Yeah. I like feet. I find a bit gross.
Understandable. Some people don't like feet.
Yeah.
Some do, but others don't.
Some do, and nothing against people who like feet. Okay, they're free to do it. You know, find a person's feet, and if they're happy for you to suck on their feet, go to town. But I find that a bit gross. And in extension of that, I'd find it a bit weird if they forced it into shows that people might like as well, to throw it in front of my face, something that I naturally just don't find appealing or attractive at all. I'd say that would be a bit weird.
Why are you bringing this up, though?
Oh, no reason. Welcome back to The Watch, and if you were able to figure out the subtext of that opening, or the cold open, you might know our thoughts if you have seen The Last of Us Episode 3. Because, wow.
I mean, I don't know whether we should delve in first and, just go straight into it, or whether we should give our thoughts on other segments of this episode first, and then dive in, because I feel like
there's an elephant in the room.
There's an elephant in the room. Do we address it first, or do we do the?
I think. Look, this whole video review might actually just be addressing that elephant, because everything else becomes irrelevant, really, in this episode, because nothing else really happens.
No.
And so the first thing that I want to address is how unbelievably pointless this episode is. There will be a discussion on, I guess, how effective or even appropriate the and it's not even the relationship between two guys. It's more about the near softcore, sex in it of a certain flavor. That's irrelevant to the primary discussion in my mind of how unbelievably out of place and forced in this whole story and background was about the relationship between these two people. And if it was a guy and a girl, two girls, same criticism here, because holy crap, what a useless, pointless filler episode that does nothing really to progress the plot, apart from Joel and Ellie get a car. The episode.
And they did a lot less work than they did in the game.
Yes, I heard about what they needed to do in the game. Dodging traps and other things that could have been
fun characters. Instead, we get this other weird subplot that completely hijacks the story.
Hijacks completely.
It reminds me, I'm going to go a tangent a bit, where Tolkien wrote an angry letter to the people who were making the animated adaptation. I think it was it Hobbit or The Rings? It was one of those two.
I think it was
Lord of the Rings. And he got angry at all the action sequences because he kept saying, "You forgot the point of the story. The plot was about taking the ring to Mordor, and it's not about it is about the journey." But he got frustrated because they hijacked the story from its core purpose. What is the point of the story? And instead tried to make it all flashy and, oh, look how awesome this is, and this episode 2. It completely forgets about what this story was, which was about Joel and Ellie. And I've got thoughts on their relationship having gone to the 3rd episode now. I'm like,
it's not working.
It's not the same. The game did it 10 times better.
Yep. So, look, we're just going into spoilers from the get-go here. This is the warning, because this episode, for me, basically jumped the shark. It revealed their hand of the people making it. This confirms all of our fears. We know where this is headed. This is unavoidably going towards Joel in 1. And not only are they going to do that, they're going to double down on it and triple down, make it even worse, and it's going to become the Ellie show. Is it Abby? It's going to become the Abby show.
It's really funny, actually. The actress who plays Ellie, I saw a tweet yesterday saying, "Guys, confirmed, season 2, another adventure with my best bud," and all the comments were, "I think you should play the second game before acting this season. I'm sorry, actress, but it's not going to happen."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's sad because they're going to, I reckon, change the rest of the season. Now we're not going to get the proper adaptation we wanted to the original game, but also, like you said, they're going to double down on the second season. And
their main guideline for being willing to subvert and change the original source material is agenda.
Yeah.
Okay? And we're going to get to discussion about this because even if you were to say there's gender aside, what they did in this episode is still jump the shark. Like, it doesn't matter if they're gay or not, okay? The fact that they're willing to just throw away what actually is in the story for this filler, pointless, boring bullcrap, just... They've revealed their hand, and because it was driven by agenda, and we'll talk about that, that means every time they have an opportunity to force it in, unnaturally so, to the point where they will hijack an entire episode, derail the show completely, like destroy the tone and tension and investment that they're building up for a side plot artistic, session where it's just the creators indulging themselves. This was basically Druckmann or the creators, everything, jerking themselves off, basically. Like, oh, we're so progressive, we're so great, aren't we? So wonderful. This is great. And you're going to like it. And if you don't like it, you're a homophobic bigot.
And if you don't believe us, just go on Twitter and read all the comments.
Exactly. Anyone who doesn't like this episode now
gets attacked.
Is a homophobic bigot. And every criticism I have of this episode... Right, and we'll talk about, the, I guess, inclusion of homosexuality and stuff, but everything so far has been how out of place and just completely subverting this episode is, and filler, boring crap, okay? Irrelevant to if they were gay or not. But even raising these types of criticisms, people were like, you just don't like it because they're gay. It's like, no. If they were straight, I still would have hated this episode because it was just boring bullcrap. And the fact that they made them, this couple, I know that they were gay in the game, but that they...
it was very hinted at.
It was hinted, I guess.
It was always hinted.
Yeah. They've gone so far into that, it almost feels like they are using it as a shield. As a type of... And to me, that's actually insulting to gay people. Like, you're just using it so you save protection from the legitimate criticism of how unbelievably stupid this episode was and out of place. Incredibly out of place. The show, well, the first 2 episodes at least, promises something. This is going to be a journey with Joel and Ellie, avoiding,
fungus zombies, people, danger.
Yep. Something pretty pivotal happened in the last episode. And so now we're thinking, okay, what dangers and trouble they'll run into along the road and everything. And we get the lightest little bit of lip service to that in the beginning of the episode where they stop to get stuff and she goes into a cellar, basically runs into a zombie thing.
I thought it was kind of messed up the way that she killed the zombie thing too, because at first she cuts it to watch it bleed. And then she they kind of make it very, and there's a face that she gives. I mean, she gives it all the time because she's not the most appealing thing to look at, but it's just like, I'm watching this and I'm uncomfortable, and it's not the zombie I'm uncomfortable with, it's the actress of Ellie. The way she plays it, she's just like, oh, I'm going to cut the zombie open and I'm going to kill it.
You're right, it makes her look a bit sadistic. Like, they are not making Ellie in this adaptation feel gentle or you're not getting attached to her or invested in the character. I'm not liking her.
At this point in the game, I felt like that there was the proper, at least parent-child relationship of, Joel was the father figure, Ellie was, being that usual child, but there was, big, love was starting to be formed there. At this point now in the show, they're still just bickering with each other. Yeah. They just hate each other. They're not talking at the start, and anything that she says, Joel's just like, oh, you just keep asking questions, that, and it wasn't annoyance out of, oh my gosh, this kid keeps talking. It's like, you are a frustrating person who I dislike. It's not that with usual kids, father child relationship where it's like, oh, this kid just keeps talking, I'm annoyed. It's, I don't like you as a person because you're frustrating me, and it's not fun to watch.
And that alone is revealing problems with the foundation of this show, which is their relationship. And it's not as good as the game, and I'm not liking Ellie. And so problems right there. Then they continue and they see burnt, people charred remains, skeletal remains. And then they use that as the opportunity to segue into a flashback. Already I was like, this is a bit out of place. Usually flashbacks at the beginning of the episode, but okay, short little... That was what I was thinking. Short little
you thought
thing.
Wrong.
And then when they show it's this prepper guy, I was thinking, okay, they must be doing this to just set up or justify them finding resources. And I was expecting that he tries to build like a safety thing, and then he either gets killed by bandits or zombies, right? But then his cache is still there, and then it's going to go back to Joel, and they're going to find the cache, and it's going to explain where it comes from. And I was like, it's a bit weird to try and set up such backstory for that.
Yeah.
But that's where I was expecting to go. And then it just kept going and going and going. And that was the whole friggin' episode. And I was like, are you kidding? You've just literally just hijacked the episode, jumped the god after this whole thing for this love story. Okay? Now, I generally find love stories boring already, okay? I stereotypically, girls like love stories and stuff. And when you go into a zombie movie, or a zombie show, there's a bit of a promise that it's going to be a zombie show, not a story about, like, you know...
A gay couple finding happiness.
Not even gay, just a couple, any couple finding happiness. And the thing is, like it wasn't really even a couple finding peace in an apocalyptic world, because the apocalyptic world barely comes to it impacts it.
Yeah.
Like, you see one zombie trying to cross a barrier and gets killed instantly.
And then raiders come one time, but after they've been like together for, I don't know how
over
long.
10 years.
Yeah.
It's and so they it has not been a story about them dealing with the apocalypse. It was a story about two people having this weird relationship. When I say weird, it's not weird because it's gay. It's weird because they have locked themselves in this area of safety, and they're kind of assholes and jerks. Like, subtext basically shows that, is it Frank, the main guy who set it all up? He was happy to murder and kill anyone who approached. You think it was just a zombie that got a shotgun to their head by approaching that fence?
Probably other people walked through too.
Like, his boyfriend could have died if he approached the fence at any other location. Guaranteed that happened multiple times. And he was this close to even shooting him in the first place. So these are actually murderous scumbag, right? That had resources that could legitimately help and benefit people. I was actually thinking, once I realized, okay, he's not going to die. What are they doing? Is he going to start a community? He has all these resources and protection and everything. He'll let people in, and it'll be a bit of a community that Joel and Ellie will then come to get help and everything, and that'll be the backstory for that. No, it wasn't. It was about these two guys that basically screw everyone else, all out for themselves. These are not good people, okay? And then you want me to be invested and feel sorry for when they eventually die from... whatever, it's cancer, although they self-delete themselves at the end because, so they made this secure, like, area that was self-sufficient, and they had all these resources and guns and everything. For what in the end? No one gets to benefit out of the end. Joel has to move on. He can't really live there and everything.
Yeah.
And it's going to be picked apart and raided and whatever, when they had a setup that could legitimately have helped some people. I'm not saying help everyone. I know balancing resources is difficult, but they could have helped. These are not good people with what they did with their resources and everything like that. And so the show wants me to be invested on, you know, their journey, on what happens and everything. And so, no, the show then starts to jump the shark, and it's this story about a relationship between... that's the weirdness, where they're just selfish, you know, screw everyone else. A relationship between two people that are not good people, okay? And, I'm supposed to be on board and feel sorry for them when they eventually die because they're just, you know, out for themselves.
Yeah. The thing as well that confused or didn't sit right with me was, at first, you've got this person who is very, you know, they're a prepper, they're for themselves, they let everyone else go and get killed, and then he's by himself, happy. I mean, I can also talk about the fact that he's in a pristine condition in this entire show, where in the game he's actually rugged.
There were multiple dumb, stupid things where I was like, hang on, what? Like, they have rolled toilet paper 20 years after Apocalypse thing. Like, he had a supply that lasted 20 years? He went bullcrap. And then I was just thinking, where did he get all consistent fuel to run that generator for 20 years?
Yeah.
It's insane.
I'm just shocked at how clean everything was. Like, inside his house, like, in the game, he's not all pristine. He's rugged like the rest of the world is. Because he's... a other stuff. Like, so there's too many things like, it doesn't compute. But the thing that annoyed me was that this was a person who obviously was selfish and self-centered. And then this one stranger shows up and suddenly he's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
But he is, but he isn't. And yeah, it was just very...
And also, something that is pretty, reveals interesting things about this individual, right? He's been happy to either send everyone away and they can starve to death, right? Or let them run into his traps and die. And so he's been happy to murder them and everything like that. And then we are left with the hanging question in the air. Why didn't he kill this guy?
Yeah, his partner, yeah.
And the ultimate answer is he had a boner. He's like, I think I might be able to get lucky with this guy. I like it. And so that makes it even worse. It's like, oh my goodness. And so he is a selfish person. And the show wants us to believe that he has genuine feelings for this. Like, no, you only didn't let him in because you thought you could get lucky with him. That's not genuine, concern and care.
A healthy relationship.
No, not at all. And what's interesting in the game, the game actually reveals that I don't know. I haven't played the game. I don't know how much information, but you find a note by the other guy when he self-deleted himself saying he hates this other guy's guts.
Yeah. They ended on a bad note. And the annoying thing with all of this, right, is that this whole story in the game and the way that Ellie interacts with them and stuff sets up so much more for Joel at the end, because basically the arc in this part of the game is that Joel getting attachment to people will end badly for you. Mm-hmm. And it's that foreshadowing of getting connected to Ellie is going to end badly, which it kind of having connection basically is bad in this world. You shouldn't have that. Where we ignore that completely because Joel and Ellie don't even interact with him. It's just basically notes saying, don't come upstairs, take what you want, whatever. Where in the game actually sets up of, okay, is connection bad in this world? What does that mean for Joel and Ellie? Should he distance himself more from her? All this other stuff.
That's such a better story.
And you miss that interaction with Ellie because Ellie is just people love it because it has that badass girl boss character of her just being because they both hate each other basically, but it's a fun way. You see her put her walls up and defenses and sticking up for herself. Where in the show she's like that with everybody, and it's so tiring because there's no vulnerability, there's no connection, and there's no all the growth feels fake to me in the TV show because it's just copying off what the game was doing, but it's not doing the same arcs and connecting threads.
So it loses tremendous value in the change they made, all for an agenda, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because they threw away these important plot developments and things with Ellie, and instead, what we got was two people in a relationship, and they're all so they want you to believe they're all so caring and loving for it when actually they're jerks. But the thing is, the game had a more realistic kind of thing where they weren't in a good relationship. That one of the guys hated him, found him too controlling, a bit of a nutcase and stuff, and ended off on a really sour note. And that you can see where the conflict comes from, because then it raises the question, can you actually have a good relationship? Well, just as you mentioned, the show is now saying, don't even question that. Don't have this conflict, Ellie or Joel. You can have a perfect, wonderful relationship so long as you screw the entire world, let everyone else die, and just out for yourself. And is it out for themselves in the couple, but is it really out for themselves? Because we see the only reason he let him in was because he had the hots for him, basically. And everyone else. And so it isn't actually about genuine care and affection now. And then they might say, but they developed a relationship then. It just felt forced.
Yeah, playing piano? That was the thing that got...
Gosh.
And up until, it made no sense for me because he makes him a beautiful steak dinner, lets him have a shower, gives him clothes. And I'm like, this is a guy who before was like, stuff you knew well, daughter. He was all... At first I was like, I like this guy. This makes sense why he would survive in this universe. And then if he does this with this one person, it doesn't make sense for the rest of his character.
Yeah. And also, holy crap, there's some problematic things if you actually want to try and break down this thing as to how quickly they get in the sack with each other. Okay,
Yeah.
It's like one dinner, and then that night, bang, they're ready to go. Now let's pretend this was a vulnerable woman. Okay,
Change the perspective and things really shift.
Really, because the power dynamic suddenly becomes very questionable, where she could starve. She doesn't know where to go. What is she going to do? She might die. And so she's willing to do anything to get this person to let them in and protect them, even sleeping with them if against their will. All right. That's a type of rape, you would say, because power imbalance is a really significant thing. And if this other person is the only reason they let them in is because they actually, oh, you're good looking. Maybe I can get lucky or everything. And then they're suddenly giving the food, implying that if you like this type of food and you want all these luxuries and everything, you gotta suck me up. But like that's kind of the undertone. That's really what's going on here. And to say that is a natural relationship of two people just connecting, like two people don't usually just hop in their sack after what
an afternoon.
Afternoon, and even if you were to try to say, people do it that quick, the actual imbalances and the influence and basically this guy, the guy who owns it all is essentially saying, yeah, I can protect you and everything like that. You just gotta, Again, and if it was a vulnerable woman, people would be raising red flags across the board. But because it's, they're both gay, well, not only will they not acknowledge or even bring up these red flags, they will say, if you don't like it, you're a homophobe. Because, and they're using it as a shield. And there are so many problems with this episode. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, I'm so mad. Because, I don't know where to start.
If I was not reviewing this, and I'm almost this close, by the way, in terms of this is done, I was like, and I would encourage everyone, this is proof where the show is going. This is going to be a dumpster fire, and it's only a vehicle for them to spread their agenda and messaging, okay? This episode is legitimate proof, so you know it's going to get Abby, you know you're going to get the Joel one, everything. And not only that, the worst fears people have for this show is confirmed with this episode in my mind, but also it's even going to be worse. I thought it would be bad enough if we got a good first season and then got the bad second season with Abby, right?
Yeah.
It's even worse. Now they are willing to hijack important points and plot points in the first season, the first story of the game and everything for their, own indulgence, okay? This episode was for the creators and Druckmann to virtue signal of how wonderful and accepting and progressive they are, and if you don't like it, you're a homophobe and bigot.
Yep.
Like, that's all that this episode is for. And they'll try and highlight relationships and everything. No. You could have had something really important with what was in the game, okay? By showing out it's difficult to have connections in this, apocalyptic world, which then raises the, exactly what you said.
The stakes at the end. Like, it leads to the end of the story instead of just jolting a different direction. And then episode 4, what's going to happen? We're not going to talk about that ever again. Like, it's just forgotten. We're going to go maybe do some Abby backstory now. Like, I'm ready for anything. For Neil Druckmann just to be like, Abby's father, here's his backstory. Also, here's the stuff from the second game that I'm still trying to forget.
So, if you keep watching this show, you are going to be fed propaganda, okay? And you're going to be, and it's very manipulative. This is one of the most manipulative kind of woke themed episodes ever, because it's all wrapped up in this whole thing that if you don't like it, you're a homophobe and bigot. Because this is, what's really interesting about this, right? Straight people, and this is where I guess we might need to segue into the discussion of the homosexual sex in this episode, because there is things that need to be pointed out in regards to that. But what I'm saying here, just before we dive into that, is that this is where I know where it's going. This show is actually going to be dog crap, and it's only going to be used as a primary vehicle to push in their agenda, and it confirms us. So I'll be done. I'm this close to even saying we're done reviewing it, because this show is clear what it
off the rails.
Off the rails. Now, what I was saying here about how manipulative this type of framing is, okay? Straight people, okay, don't like watching gay sex. This is just a natural reality, and it's not bigoted or homophobic. That's just the reality, is it? And it's just the same as saying gay people don't like watching straight sex. And also homosexual guys don't like watching lesbian sex, okay? Yeah, it's perfectly fine to not want to watch things that you are not attracted at watching, okay? This is not bigoted or anything. And this is so true that where you see, like, when people who make content that's catered for this, when they're honest about it, like there's a certain movie called Bros, which is just about, gay relationships and basically soft-core porn homosexual sex, okay? And some of the promo images are like really far, where you see a guy just in front of another guy. You know what they do, and it's like, holy crap. They're going, so it's soft-core porn, right? Bombed dramatically at the box office, because this is the reality. The percentage of people that are gay tend to be a far lower, well, not just, it is, they're a far lower percentage of the, and straight people don't want to watch gay sex, okay? And so they're like, well, we can't get them when we're honest about it, so we will hide it and inject it into shows that people already like, all right? Force it into their face, and if you are uncomfortable with this, if you don't like it, you don't accept, you're against inclusion and representation, and you're a homophobic bigot. And that is disgusting type of narrative that they're trying to frame and get people on, and push back against that. No, you don't have to accept that. And guess what? Straight people do find gay sex repulsive. And so it's pretty explicit in this episode, right? Where they allude to oral sex, and they put the sound effects in it and everything. And you, as a straight guy, you just want to gag. You're like, why are you throwing this in front of my face? Okay.
I'm just laughing because, Shad, you put yourself through this?
I skipped through. I was skipping, but I needed to know how far they went.
As soon as I saw the chest hair, I was out.
I was out.
Skip.
I have enough trouble watching romance stories between a guy and a girl, and if I see them kiss, I'm just like, all right, just look at the girl. I don't even like to look at a guy kissing a girl, all right? Like, seriously. And then you don't give anyone any options, but it's just two guys going
at it. Just look down, Shad.
And if you're wondering, yes, it's easier for, say a straight guy to watch lesbians kiss because guys are attracted to girls, okay? You can kind of see how that naturally plays out, all right? But it's perfectly, a homosexual guy would probably find that repulsive seeing two girls kiss. They're not attracted to that. And so would you shame them for saying, ew, icky, I don't want to see that? They wouldn't, but they'll shame straight people because suddenly, no, you have to be on board with that, otherwise you're a bigot, right? And that's what this episode is basically meant to do, to try and try and get people who naturally will say, oh, I'm not attracted to that. It's like, to shame them into,
we caught you.
And then it's the shaming thing. You're seeing it online already, lad. If you don't like this episode, and there is plenty of reason to not like this episode separate to the gay sex, as all the reasons we gave, okay? But even if you just restrict your criticism to that, they'll still call you a homophobe. But then if you actually be honest about it, like we are on here on the Night's Watch, right? Whereas no, straight people don't find this attractive, okay? You're not going to browbeat me and say, oh, it wasn't, great to see you. No. And then they will go even further.
Again, I just think it's also important to iterate that it sucks because they're hiding a bad story in front of this. And so while we're going on about, we're not attractive to this gay stuff, it's also that they're having this wall of you can't dislike this because of the type of relationship it is. We can't criticize it for having, bad motives. It doesn't make sense in context to the world. All these other things are now irrelevant because you can't attack this relationship at all.
And see, this goes into just a general trend that we see in modern media against traditional relationships, okay? And this goes into also just traditional heterosexual relationships. And Last of Us is interesting, where they've gone out of their way to make the female characters in this adaptation look less attractive than the game version. And then even in the game, it seems to be that way as well. Like the remastered version,
the remakes,
they actually make the female characters look less attractive in the remastered things than the original stuff. Okay, it's like they don't want straight people to be attracted to women to the point where they won't even make them attractive anymore, and because it's problematic male gaze. But you'll notice these two guys, right? That guy who was in the hole, he was nowhere near as worn, torn, and ragged, and as you would expect in an apocalyptic setting, right?
Neither of them were. The whole setting felt out of place for me.
Yeah. And so it's like they want you to be attracted to this type of sexual expression, but not the other type, to the point where they will like show this the gay sex pretty graphically, but there won't be any equivalent of a heterosexual relationship seen like that in life. That's my bet. I like at the very least you'd want to balance it out, but we saw it in the game.
We'll at least get an Abby scene.
But no, even in Last of Us 2, right, there was a scene, Abby becomes gay, okay? And also, by the way, there's another, like, clear, you can see why they cut certain things from the game. Because in the game, Abby finds a gay porno that the guy owns, and it's actually guys, and she's a bit more interested in it in the first game. Like, I saw a screenshot where people point this out. She's looking...
Abby or Ellie?
Ellie, sorry.
Okay,
Ellie.
so because I was like... Abby, no.
I get him. So Ellie, she finds a magazine that was owned by this guy, and she is showing particular interest in it, which would be a bit odd if she was a lesbian. But they wanted to retcon, and that's not in this movie anymore. Sorry, the live action adaptation. And so in the second game, Abby is a lesbian, and there is Ellie is there is a scene, right, where she's about to get it on with someone, and they cut away. And usually that would be the mature thing to when I say I have criticisms with kind of graphic depictions of sexuality and everything, it's not because it's just gay sex, right? I have the same criticism for all the nudity and sexuality in Game of Thrones, all right? So much of it is completely unneeded and irrelevant to the actual story and the quality of it, and it lessens the work as a result. Where House of Dragons did it far more maturely, where the sex scenes in House of Dragons and even the nudity had purpose in the story and narrative, where Game of Thrones was just like to get teenage boys their happies off, basically, where there was no point at all. They literally named this type of useless sexualization nudity as sex position, where they didn't have faith in the like dialogue story, and everything, and so they would hold people's interest by throwing boobs everywhere, which is just so cheap and manipulative and loads here, and so I have criticism for like sexualized imagery that's out of place in the show, regardless if it's straight or gay. This is very out of place for this type of show. It was unneeded, all right, and it's going to turn off your largest audience, which is straight people, okay. And if you want to discuss, they should be treated with equal respect and representation, we'll talk about that as well. We'll talk about all the things, okay. But as I was saying in the second game, they cut away from any type of sexual imagery that straight people might actually be interested in watching. But then they'd be pretty graphic in the second game about certain, sexual relationships with people that you would not be attracted to, and straight people would not be attracted, don't want to see. And it's the Abby sex scene and it's gross. Like, it's been mean to hell.
I really thought they were going to cut away, and they didn't.
They didn't.
Because they cut away before. I was like, okay, but I can live with that. And then they just held the camera on, and I was like, why am I watching this? I hope Mum doesn't walk in.
But this is the same trend in this episode where they were like, no, you are problematic if straight people, you're problematic if you like seeing, normal straight people have relationships and kiss and sex, and you're definitely problematic if you're attracted to women. But here's a lot of gay sex, and you're a bigot if you don't like this, and we'll be really graphic with it, and we'll put the sound effects of having oral sex in it at the same time.
Just cut away.
Like the hypocrisy is astounding. And this is what I mean about this general trend in modern media, where there is this shaming against traditional straight relationships and straight attraction and sexy women and everything like that. But then there's this complete on the opposite end of the spectrum where they make things that straight people wouldn't be attracted, really graphic and in your face, and they want you to be as not only okay with it, but celebrate it more than traditional relationships.
Because that's what social media's been doing this entire week, was just great episode, nothing like the game, but it was fantastic. I'm glad the world's better because of this. Which I disagree.
Flat disagree. What I'm about to say is just natural biological reality. It's not bigoted, okay? And it's not about acceptance or anything. This type of episode does not promote tolerance of homosexual. If anything, it's shooting themselves in the foot, because straight people don't like watching this, and getting it forced in front of their face, right, is just going to make them resent this crap more, and it's going to shoot them in the foot. And so it's not going to spread acceptance and tolerance, okay? This is actually they actually want you to celebrate it more than normal. If you don't, you're a homophobic bigot. But the natural biological reality is that heterosexual relationships, okay, the natural biological way that, humans, procreate and reproduce, right, is biologically superior and therefore biologically preferable to any other exception or sexual expression that you can. And when I say this, I'm also including like any type of thing that takes out consent at all. But when you look at the biological, relationship with consent and everything, is always going to be superior, evolutionary, socially, and everything, than any other exception to that relationship, okay? This is why it is not only normal, but preferable and okay to have heterosexual relationships displayed. I have issues with over-sexualization, just like I mentioned with Game of Thrones, stuff like that. My criticisms of over-sexualization, and especially when it's included in like children's media, big criticisms regardless if it's straight or gay, okay? But just having like relationships depicted and stuff, this is why there will always be a preference and an allowance to, straight relationships, because that's just the biological, natural expression between the human race, all right? And that's why there will be a bias, or when people say, no, they shouldn't have equal representation, because guess what? They're actually not equal, all right? That's the reality. And acknowledging that doesn't mean that you hate gay people, which is so stupid. Of course I got gay friends. And also gay people in media, I don't have an issue with it, especially if it's it depends if it's targeted for kids or not and everything, because in terms of things that are outside of the standard, exceptions to the standard of the normal biological human relationships and everything like that, it's up to the parents to decide when they'll teach the kids this, okay? And when you present things that are outside that standard, that takes the control out of the hands of the parents, and then you have to deal with it at times that you probably might not want to, all right? So that's why there is criticism and objection to this being included in children's media. But okay, adult media and everything, I don't have a problem that Gandalf is gay, all right? Captain Holt. Dumbledore, sorry.
The actor
the
is
actor
as
of
well.
Gandalf was gay.
Happens every time.
Didn't have a problem with that. I love Gandalf as a character. And the fact that, say, is it Ian McKellen?
Yes.
The fact that he is gay is as irrelevant to me or is as relevant to me as him wearing paired socks or unpaired socks. That's how pointless a factoid it is if he's gay or not, okay? As an actor, I want to see if he can do the job and everything. And especially as an individual, if I'm going to be friends with them, the fact that they're gay has no bearing at all, as much bearing really, as straight or different socks. I don't care. Just like I don't want to hear about your sex life, Nathan. It's not my friggin' business. And it'll be weird if you come to me and say, hey, Shad, you want to know about... No, I don't want to know about that, Nathan.
That's the only thing too. I feel like a lot of the portrayals of this type of relationship in media, it is always very over-sexualized, and it's their entire personality.
Yep.
Like... It was about, in this episode, we have a prepper and this guy who needs help. But then once they became a couple, that's all it was about. Mm-hmm. Their whole identity was no longer, this guy who was isolated and alone. Yeah. And this guy was, by himself.
There was only the slightest conflict about, you think the government's Nazis, they are Nazis. And that's, everything else was...
Yeah, the relationship. And it happens in media all the time. They just forget people's personality. You have other interests, likes and dislikes, than your preference to what you're attracted to.
This is why my favorite gay character is Captain Holt, okay? He is not ashamed about mentioning that he's gay when it's relevant in whatever conversation he has, right? But he is nowhere near defined by it. He's defined by these great character traits of him being stoic and overly analytical, and he doesn't smile, and you think he's laughing, but he's got a straight face, and he's got a great character. And his actual relationship, he has a husband in the show, right? That comes up now and then, and it's natural, it's normal, and it works for the show, and it's brilliant. Favorite gay character at all. And so people say, it's bullcrap, okay? You can be absolutely accepting and tolerant, which is what you would want to, preach and everything like that, and still say, I don't like watching gay sex because I'm not gay. All right? And so then it raises the question as to why did they do this in the episode? All right? They had such a great story that they could have, used and and would have really complemented Joel and Ellie's thing. They got rid of it all. You can cut this entire relationship segment from the show completely and just have Joel and they're looking at their skulls and everything to them arriving at this fence and putting in like, hey, Frank, are you there?
Yeah.
And the show would make just as much sense as before, basically. And you wouldn't have it actually would be a better show because the fact that the tone shifts so drastically to this relationship thing, and if you don't like love stories and everything like that, you're just going to be bored out of your brains. And this is a zombie apocalypse show. There's an inherent promise that this is going to be an action kind of show, and then you give it a whole episode of this relationship love story of two jerks that are basically letting people die around them while they're being happy and having sex, basically.
And at the end they die, and then that was the episode.
And that's the episode.
And we don't progress any further for Ellie and Joel.
So pointless, such a betrayal of the promise of what the show was meant to be. So then this just brings up the question again, why did they do it? This subverted and derailed the show so drastically, made it worse, and everyone, I would turn off. I would this is clearly what they're going to do. It is just they look at this show as a vehicle, and this is the reason why. I was going to say, why did they do it? This is the reason. This show is a vehicle to push their agenda. What is their agenda? It's not that, be tolerant and be accepting everything. No. This is, you have to like this as much, or especially more, as a heterosexual sex scene. And if you're not, you're a homophobe and bigot. And it's like, hang on. The only way I could be as okay with this sex scene and be able to watch it and be not an issue, right, as a heterosexual, sex scene and stuff like that, would be if I was attracted to men. You're basically saying you want me to be attracted to men and male, homosexual sex as much or okay with it. But thing is, straight people will not be okay on this equivalent level. To be okay with the equivalent level, you have to basically be a bit gay. They want you to be a bit gay. That's the agenda. Yeah. And if you're not, you're a homophobe. It's like, whoa, hang on. I thought this was just about tolerance. But now this is basically shaming straight people for being straight. And it's in your face. And if you, if anyone, you've seen it on Twitter, they will criticize you being homophobic just for having issues with the episode and not even bringing up the gay sex stuff. And then if you even the slightest say, well, I'm not attracted to guys. Oh my God, you're homophobic. Goes crazy. How can gay people feel accepted if you say you're not attracted to, the same sex? It's like, well, what?
That's just Twitter in general, though.
Yeah.
I had a point, but then I also forgot about it.
But that's why they injected this in there. And the fact that they're willing to desecrate their show to this level for their progressive expression and virtue signaling shows that they do not care about the source material.
I remember the two things I wanted to say. I think one, like you were saying, it is, I think it's an echo chamber. They do this thing so that everyone on Twitter says, look how great this episode is. People who maybe hadn't seen it before are going to watch it. People who are in that realm of, there's a beautiful love story in Last of Us now. I'm going to watch that. Fantastic. But also divides fans who love the original source material and the lore. And now there's a us versus them mentality, which people who love making live adaptations of things or, TV shows and movies, they love that now. You see with all the TV shows and movies, they love the us, them, just fight, talk online about these bad things, and then we'll get more views and watch our show, and you're just ruining great stories and source material. Yeah.
Yep. And this is par for the course for Naughty Dog now and Druckmann and everything, because they did it in Last of Us Part 2, right?
Yeah.
They subverted a great story, great characters and everything to push their own agenda and message.
Yeah, and they lied to you in the marketing. They said, yep, you and Joel and Ellie, you're going to go on a big adventure. And then the first 10 minutes, Joel's dead.
And this is par for the course, where they will hijack their entire show, betray important story points and characters and all that stuff to shoehorn, force in their own progressive virtue signaling and message. And if you don't like it, you're a bigot. And it's a type of really subversive social engineering through shaming and browbeating and everything like that. Because that's the result. We've already seen it online. It's already happening, okay? And it's shaming straight people for just being straight and saying, you need to be just as happy with this stuff as straights. No, we don't, because I'm not gay. I'm straight. Okay. And so, if they were honest about this, like, Last of Us has gay sex on the front thing or anything like that, they know they would get the bros if it's like, straight people will not watch it because they're not interested in that. So they have to hide it. And now because we tricked it, we got ya. You've watched it. Even we didn't, because it's the false marketing. They want to do this, everything.
I'm just realizing all the comments I see was, it was a beautiful story. These two guys hanging out. It was a wonderful, not like the game, like they didn't tell me what it was. They just said, this is beautiful. Episode 3 made me cry. Like, I don't know why. Did someone die? No.
Yeah, and like I said, same criticisms about how out of place this was, if it was straight or anything like that. It's like, this is supposed to be a zombie apocalypse show, and you have this whole episode about this love story about two jerks, and it's not a story about them dealing with the apocalypse. It doesn't set up important things that what Ellie and Joel need to find when they get there. You could have cut the entire thing, and Ellie and Joel's story would have made just as much sense. It's pointless. It's useless, okay? It's out of place completely. And if it wasn't, a gay couple, there'd be vastly more people pointing it out. But instead, because it is, they're like, oh no, I'll be a homophobe. It's like, oh, I cried. It was wonderful. It was great.
I know some of the people compared
this is actually, this is very clever manipulation.
They're
really
doing
it on purpose.
Bait and switched hardcore.
Yeah.
I remember some people saying that this is like Up. They're like, this is as beautiful as the start of Up. And I'm like, no, it's not, because that was character building. Yeah. That was setting up the story. This has done nothing.
It had
for
relevance to what happened after.
Yeah.
And on top of that, these are actually two people that were good and caring, where if you actually look at what's happening with these two guys, how many people, innocent people, stumbled on those traps, got blown to hell, and Frank was just like, another one on the, like, he's a psychopath. They both are. And they're insanely selfish, living in this little kind of, thing where they're fine, everyone else can go to hell, right? These are awful people. And so it's not like this wonderful relationship. It's actually a really problematic relationship where one guy's basically coercing the other to have sex with him for protection and everything like that, and have a relationship. And in the game, the actual source material shows that they hated each other. The guy basically did feel forced and was only doing it for the protection and everything.
Yeah.
But they don't want to actually be honest about what's... They showed it, and yet if you pay attention, you'll see it, but they're not going to acknowledge it in the show because they don't want to be honest about how insanely problematic this really is, right? It's almost like a story of rape and imprisonment against someone's will through coercion and domination and control of resources and protection.
And that's messed up.
That is so messed up. So this show is not a wonderful love story. No, this is so friggin' bad.
I just love that there were people who called us out, because at first we said red flags for this series. First few episodes was pretty close to law, and this one just jumped the boats.
Jumped the shark.
Jumped the shark, jumped off the boat.
Yep.
It was... I don't know what to expect in the next episode.
Yeah.
I'm expecting to go completely off book now.
I'm this close to just saying we're done. This show, we know where it's going to go. This is evidence. It's dog crap. It's just a vehicle to push their propaganda and their own virtue signaling in, and they want to hide it behind a property that is already beloved, okay? Because if they're honest about it, just like Bros was, no one would go watch it because we don't want to see that type of stuff, because guess what? Yes, we're straight, but so they'll hide it in the stuff, and they're going to do it again and again. There's going to be more. There's going to be more of this. You know it, okay? Because to them, it's not a show about good story, about these characters. It's a vehicle to spread their message. So don't watch it. I would be completely done with it. But if you want us to keep reviewing it, let us know in the comments. But I'm this close as just don't even give it attention anymore, because this is complete dog crap, subversive, manipulative, and everything. Like, what they're doing is actually really, really scummy in terms of trying to shame people into all of this.
And they're just trying to hide away the fact that they're not doing a very good job of adapting this game into live action, because I'm thinking about, Joel and Ellie's story now. I'm not that interested. They don't have any chemistry on screen. They are kind of insufferable to watch. Go back to the games and it's like, oh, this is a masterpiece. Watch live action and I'm like, this is... Anything fan-made would be 10 times better in terms of chemistry and everything else. So, I think I'll give it one more. But then I'm also I'm
because the next episode,
It's
I
gonna be
feel
fine.
It's going to be back on track, exactly.
And then they'll go-
and they want to reel you back in, and then it's going to be another episode
Yeah.
where it's just like
That's what I'm-
Neil
yeah.
Druckmann jerking himself off. Oh, that's just such a progressive person, and the message and everything. Yeah. That's the nature. Because technically, Last of Us, the first game, was that for the second game. Reel you in, and the second game was all, just a vehicle for their
messaging. Yeah.
Wow. So those are the primary criticisms that need to be raised in regards to this episode, and there's nothing else to really talk about in regards to the episode. Ellie gets her shirt. Ah! Her red shirt,
Wow.
yeah. Joel gets a car. That's the episode. The actual progress of the story people want. Joel
And they just get a car.
Gets a car.
There's parts in the game where it's like, okay, the battery's flat, we need fuel, all this sort of stuff. But Joel just gets the car. All right, that was easy. No conflict here.
Yeah, and they could have had this really interesting thing of dodging the traps, trying to sneak in, get the resources.
Maybe some suspense.
Yeah, grow the relationship between Ellie and Joel by posing the question, can you actually have a good relationship in an apocalyptic world like this, by showing Frank and whatever having problems the guy hated. None of that. They lost it all. And for this insanely problematic, unrealistic, bullcrap kind of story of these awful people that just are happy to murder other people, let them die, and be selfish and
isolate themselves, have a good life, and don't care about anyone else.
And Frank didn't even look after the guy because he actually cared for him at the beginning. It's like, oh, you're cute. He wanted to get lucky. I
was so confused why he let him in.
Yeah.
Let him have a shower, and then he's like, 5 more minutes, and he's like, sure. I'm like, what? This is nothing like your character from the rest of this episode. You've been selfish and self-absorbed.
Yeah.
And
It's amazing, right? When they're getting attacked by raiders, Frank, he decides to stand in the middle of the street where it's nighttime, but there's fire casting light and everything. By standing in the street is the most optimal way for him to get spotted by the raiders. And it's so stupid. It's like he wants to get shot on purpose. And yes, he does get shot. Yeah. I wonder why you're standing in the middle of the street, you retard. I thought you were a survivalist.
That's what I thought too. I was like, why are you you're going to get shot? Why isn't he shot yet? Boom. Okay, got shot. Great.
It's so
and
dumb.
then his friend has to go and help him and bring him
And then it cuts
dumb stuff
to you would think Frank would be the injured one, and then the next thing Frank's fine, and the guy has cancer, and he's just like
he's in a wheelchair now.
I thought Frank would be in a wheelchair perhaps if he got nicked in the spine or something, but
if there's just they make me fill things in that shouldn't matter. But it's like, okay, if you raided this area and you saw there's only 2 guys in here and they're both injured, come back in a few weeks with more guys and you're good. Why did no one else come back?
I know. It's unbelievable. It's so stupid.
Just things completely forgotten because you're not focusing on anything.
Hang on, as well. Joel says that fence is not going to hold raiders, right? And then it cuts to another thing and you see cars all stacked up against the fence. But when Joel and Ellie come back, there's no cars there. It's just a fence.
The inconsistencies.
Because that means that the cars are gone, or there's another part of the fence that just because the raiders. Why are you approaching where all the car right through that front gate? Full pelt. That gate is not holding back a car. I don't care if it's electrified. You'll get through it easy as anything. And so no way would they be able to survive against dedicated raiders because maybe if they did have the cars there around the whole fence, but they don't because when Joel and Ellie arrive, they don't. So. Also very inconsistent with plot holes and contradictions. This episode is dog crap.
Yep.
Pointless. You could cut it all and so there we go. That's Last of Us episode 3. If I was watching it and not reviewing it, I'd be done. This shows we know where it's going. Okay? I do not want to see a Joel in one. I do not want to see an Abby show. That's where it's going. Decide for yourselves. Do you want us to keep reviewing it? You probably do, and we're going to have to suffer through more gay sex. Don't make us watch gay sex! Come on, isn't there a line? We don't want to watch that! We're not gay! We appreciate you guys. Thank you for your support and viewership. Support us on Patreon or subscribe to or Utreon if you're going to force us to do this. Come on.
Yeah. Give us some benefit.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you next time. And as always, stay on watch.